old farm boy. He's walking around and he goes, war, war. And his mates say, what's the matter with you? He said, I got this bloody stivvy, he said. So they say, well, best thing to do is you're full of the joys of spring. Go into the barn and get 2 handfuls of nice warm cow shit and clamp it either side, he said, and that'll do the trick. So he said, well, I think I'll do that. Anyway, he wanders off into the barn and drops his trousers and gets these 2 handfuls of cow shit, and just as he's about to do it, in walks the dairymaid, and she says, what are you doing? So he explains to her. So she said, nah, you don't want to do that. She drops her drawers, lifts her skirt up and says, you want to stick it up here? So he did, both handfuls.
Good evening and welcome to another exciting show. And tonight we've got Mark Bayford, the bowler-hatted farmer, on the show. Good evening,
young man.
Good evening. And he is the Fockham Minister. What's it now? You're Fockham Minister of Fockham.
Fockham Hall, yeah.
You're Minister of Fockham Hall. That's it. Because I guess you know the Prime Minister of Fockham Hall, do you? He's a cat, actually, called Roger. And his surname is, here he is, his surname is Ring. And he's known as Rogering the Cat because lots of people in Parliament that like Rogering the Cat, apparently. So there we go. So that's Rogering the Cat. Now, tonight we've got an exciting show, as I've just said earlier. I like repeating myself. And Mark is going to cut through all the, shall we say, the bovine excrement, as being very polite there. Of the mainstream
very polite.
Because what we was talking about before coming on air was that it's my belief. Now, I'm nothing to do with farming or anything like that, although I wanted to be a farmer when I was a kid. But I don't know quite what happened. But anyway, I never did. But I believe that they're creating a problem, and there may be some infiltration in the farming people to create a food shortage problem. Reaction: people say they got no food and it's costing a lot of money. Reaction: solution: well, we can feed you insects, which of course can be bred in factories. It's not, you don't have to worry about the weather conditions, rain or snow, and you have a nice unhealthy supply of insects to chomp on. That is my theory. And what's your feelings, Mark? Well, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I come from a farming family. Grandfather was a herdsman, looked after up to 500 cows. My dad's dad was a mechanical engineer in the farming industry. They ran 32 big fresh engines and steam engines, which used to do contract ploughing and harvesting and so forth. So it's slightly in my blood. I decided at 11 that I needed to go and find a job for myself, and went off to work on a local pig farm. And that was all right. You know, I soon come to realise that I could race the pigs round as long as you held onto their ears. You know, you could pretty well ride them around. And then went off to college and university and did the whole agricultural thing, learnt about the agricultural side, the horticultural side, set up a market garden, ran fruit and veg stalls, run a fruit wholesalers. I've always had the farming side in the background. Now I've got several hats on. I've got a section on the family farm, which I run as a community project, which is where volunteers come in to help grow stuff. I'm a coordinator with the Land Workers Alliance, which is like a union of all small growers that across the country, about 3,000 members. I work heavily with Catherine from the PFFA, the People's Food and Farming Alliance. I work full-time in a fruit and veg wholesale company. Yeah, I run a CIC. I've got lots going on. Yeah, I'm a busy person.
And I mean, you said you worked in a pig farm. I didn't know you worked for local authority. You said you worked on a pig farm, you know. There's lots of pigs down in my local authority with their noses in the troughs, you know.
There's plenty of them up there, that's for sure.
Oh, crumbs. Now, sorry, I didn't warn you beforehand. The show, we are very chat room orientated, so occasionally we go over to chat. So we'll have a quick, if that's all right with you, Mark,
Absolutely.
a quick snipping chat. Now, who we got here? We got Sebastian Moran. You got a mention on the Paul English show. Well, thank you very much. That's good. Actually, I know Paul. We're actually in contact with each other, and I sometimes sort of, I have been on a couple of times on his show on Thursdays. Very good show it is, 8 o'clock. Only on what do you call it? Rumble channel. Of course, he's not on PukeTube. Hatchy George T.E.L. Lawrence. Has Hatchie and Buds lost the geography when it gets to a walk and he needs he got the local scale ballpark, not exactly the lost you there. Are you on the magic mushrooms? You know.
I think he's been farming something else.
I think he's on the Rastafarian Old Hoban, isn't he, or something like that? Evening, Chris. Guests are all chat. You see, it's Chris the Gardener.
Chris the Gardener.
He's across the border to you. He's actually in Norfolk. I don't know whether you mind that at all, but he was going to come on and translate in case there was a language difficulty, you know, between Hertfordshire and Suffolk, you know, but you never know. We got Deb. Hello, Deb. Evening, Chris and all. Hope you're keeping well. And we got Aunt Sally. Evening, Aunt Sally. Don't mention any sheep jokes. This is Stig from New Zealand. Morning all. So nothing about sheep shagging, nothing like that. So no sheep shagging jokes at all. See, we're all polite jokes here. Evening, folks. That's Ralph. We got Kat, Holly. Hello, Chris, Mark, and everyone else. Greetings. Hope all well. Yes, I think we all are. And there was. Parliamentary types keep pussycats as beards, Chris. And it says, I like Mike already, Mr. Von Essex. I'm looking forward to the next 2 hours. So am I. And then we got Stig from New Zealand, who we've greatly insulted. That's Australia. Oh, I'm sorry, mate. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's Australia, yes. Not New Zealand, no. Because you actually had a horse that was Prime Minister once, didn't you? Just sort of felt like that. Anyway, on with the show. And also, I'm going to do a call out for, where are we? Lee. Now, Lee, I've got a banner here. Now, I'll probably, where is it now? It's down here somewhere. Now, Lee runs a disco type thing on, and this is his website. Now, if I've got it wrong, Lee will probably tell me in chat, but if you want to tune into this, you won't write it down, so you freeze frame it. We can't do it whilst it's live. And he does all classical, when I say classical, he does sort of 60s, what I heard, music, and 70s and stuff like that. Sounds very nice. So there it is. So if you're a bit fed up, you can tune into that. So there we go. I've done my plug for him. You know? So on with the show. Now, what we are saying, which I jumped the gun a bit.
What's my thoughts?
What's your thoughts? I mean, I'm always suspicious when I see the mainstream homing in on it, on things, and you see tractors. I saw the one in Brussels spraying the silage through the streets. Very nice. That man needs an award, I think. I like
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, if you could come to my local council and spray it outside the council,
I'll pay you.
Yeah, that's right. We all have a whip round for it. So, I mean, what is actually happening? I mean, it is tough being a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And what annoys me, I mean, if someone said that, I don't know, well, let's look at the fishing industry. The fishing industry is massive decline. It's destroyed. It's decimated.
Yeah.
If someone said that fish was cancerous and everybody stopped eating fish, then you can understand it. But no, more people are eating fish than they've ever ever done, but the industry is in decline.
Yeah.
Huh? And we need food. Farming
Yeah.
industry in decline. Huh? What's going on? So,
Okay. Let's break this down backwardly. So,
okay.
for those who follow the show, if they have an understanding of who the WEF are, originally a lot of people who, how should we say, want to dictate to the rest of the planet how they should live their lives while living theirs just as they please. They came up with this blinding idea. The blinding idea would look like this. We'll get rid of all the people. We'll get robots to do what we need to do, and we'll live happily ever after. That's about the long and the short of it, the end. Now, the story in between fits in like this. Back in the 70s, they started putting into place the clampdown on people owning farms, working farms, breeding animals, producing food production, clamping down and down more and more on it, and taking it over at the same time. Now, over the course of the last 50 years, and I don't know what age you are, Eric, I'm 56. I've had a really good innings. I can't say I haven't, right? I've been blessed to have the parents I've had, lived in the town I've lived in the country I've lived in. I've never wanted for absolutely nothing. Now, what I have seen is that there is a challenge coming up that farmers are being deliberately targeted via three major things. So we've got 1, net zero, 2, supermarket pricing, and 3, bureaucracy set down by DEFRA and the Environment Agency. And all of these work hand in hand. So if we take, let's start with the supermarkets. So years ago, farmers used to get their subsidies to make sure that food was cheaply produced, got to the supermarket shelf, and ended up in your shopping trolley at a discounted cost. Okay, so the benefits were there for the general public. But what's happened over the last 30 years is the farmers have got paid less, the public pay more, and the subsidies have ended up in the hands of the supermarkets. Right? And who pays for them subsidies? The general public. No brainer. Well, if you believe the theory of money as a value. So what's happened over the course of that time is the supermarkets have pounded and pounded and pounded the farmers. To give you an idea, supermarkets predominantly pay about 32p, sometimes less, per litre for milk. The milk costs the farmer 36 to 38 pence to produce. So every time the tanker goes up the drive, without fail, 7 days a week, that farmer loses money. Now, how did this come about? Pre-pandemic, the farmers signed up to contracts that they could afford to be involved in. Fuel prices were low, feed prices were low, they could afford to do it, and the cost of production on a litre of milk then was about 27 pence. They were getting 30 pence, 32, 35 pence, something like that through the. It stacked up. Then the pandemic came and we had an issue. Fuel after that went from 20 pence a litre. We got the tax relief removed. So the litre of red fuel now is about £1 a litre. Feed costs, just to give you an idea, when I set my little farm up, where are we now? Nearly 9 years ago, a sack of corn for chickens was £4.80. That's now £15.60. So you can see how the costs have just gone through the roof. And this has come about deliberately, and I mean deliberately. You know, we all, I certainly have feelings about the reason electricity is so expensive, because it isn't because the cost of manufacturing electricity has gone up. is down to the fact that we just need to pay more for it to break us, break the little people, especially farmers. You know, from farming point, if you've got a grain silo and you need to run dryers, if you've got a dairy and you need to run the milking equipment, if you've got chicken houses, you need the heating on, whatever it is, you need electricity and vast amounts of it. I mean, I spoke to a farmer the other day, his electricity bill's gone up £70,000 a year. 70,000. So that's one of the issues. People got into these contracts and now they just got no idea how to get out of them. Secondly, my favourite, net zero. Very serious subject. Very, very serious subject. Cows fart cause global warming, and the world's going to finish within the next week at least, because, you know, we've got more cows than we need, and, you know, all these things, what, you know, cause methane and so forth. But what I love, Eric, is when you ask the general public and people say to me, "Oh my God, it's terrible." I say, "Really? Is it?" They say, yeah. You know, it's phenomenal amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And I say, "Well, how much?" And they say, "What do you mean, how much?" "Loads." I said, "Yeah, but how much?" And they say, "Well, I don't know, 10, 20%. And I say, like, "Well, actually, it's 0.04%. And they, no, it can't be right. You can't possibly be right, Mark. You're making that up." I said, "No, I'm not. This is information put out by top scientists around the world who are questioning the nonsense. And the reason they're questioning it is because all the people who are telling you that it's really high will never give you a figure. And they're all on the payroll by somebody like Bill Gates, George Soros, whoever it might be. So when you get it into people's heads to question it and start looking for themselves, they then come back and they go, that can't be right. I always say to people, look, when I was at school, we were taught that carbon dioxide is the gas of life. Two certainties on this planet. If there's no carbon dioxide, there's no plants. If there's no plants, there's no oxygen. Do you want to risk not having any oxygen on the planet for the sake of giving up carbon dioxide? I ain't in for that game. I'm not very much of a gambling man, Eric. So I don't fancy me chances on no oxygen. Oxygen, I'll tell you where you find out that's right up there with money, mate, on the level of importance things in life.
That's a bloody goodness. Yeah, it is. What gets me? It's the king's new clothes. I mean, let's face it. As scientists will say, they can be bought off. And they are bought off.
Of course they can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure things like that don't happen in the real world because that would just be very naughty. But in reality, I think it probably does. So that's two of the things. The net zero one is my favourite because, you know, you can, the more you look into it, and then and this brings me into the next section. So the DEFRA, who are the agricultural ministry, effectively, they look after all farms, all farming, and they are all but completely useless, right?
Yes.
They have no purpose on this planet apart from spending government money to destroy farming, because they do not achieve anything else. That's my personal opinion. I know I'm entitled to it because we live in a country of democracy and free speaking. So, DEFRA have brought out this year, in the UK, as in Great Britain side of things here, because it changes slightly country to country. But in Britain, they brought out a thing called the ELMS policy. And ELMS is to look after the environment and manage the nature and so forth. So if you're a land owner, now you might be a tenant farmer, you don't own the land. So if you're the land owner, you can get up to £250 per acre not to grow any food.
Is that set aside, that thing?
Yeah. So what they're saying is you've got to reduce your farm down by 20%. 10% goes into pretty flowers and 10% goes into trees, right? Now,
it's good.
Right. So it gets better. It gets better. Right. So if you own a big estate right, of thousands of acres, and someone comes on and they say to you, Lord so-and-so, I'd like to keep my sheep on your field. And you say, okay, no problem at all. How much are you going to pay me? Because I'm the Lord of the manor and I own all the land. And he says, like, it's a bit like fuck 'em all, isn't it? You know, you own all the land, you know what you got. So along comes said farmer with his sheep, and he wants to graze his sheep. And he says, how much do you want? It's the farmer says, what are you going to pay? The landowner says, what are you going to pay? So the farmer says, well, I can afford about £15 to £20 an acre per year. Landowner has a good think, and he says to himself, no thanks. He says, I can get £250 an acre, and I haven't got to do anything for it. Now, I might be cynical here, but anyone would think they don't want people to farm. Now, if you look at that as a real simple maths, and some of these big farms have got thousands upon thousands of acres. I went to a farm the other day to meet a guy who's a cattle farmer, and he was telling me the story about the estate he works on. He's been on there for 40 years as a tenant farmer. He's always paid his rent on time. He's never been late, and they've come to him now and said, you've got to come off. Got to come off because we're going to put it all down to lays. It's all going down to set aside. We're going to get 12.5 times as much per year for doing nothing. They have 47 tenant farmers on that one estate. Everyone's coming on.
Oh my God.
I went up to Derbyshire weekend before last. I met a cattle farmer up there, Andy. His family have been on the farm there 92 years. Tenanted farmers again. 92 years the family's been on the farm. And he's been given the option to come off, or he can stay in the farmhouse with the farmland, the farmyard where he keeps his cattle, but can't have any grazing. Well, without the grazing, he can't keep the cows. So... and they didn't want to give him a rent reduction without the land. But do you know what they're putting the land down to? Another one of my favourites, solar panels.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you've tried one, but they ain't half tough when you try and eat the buggers.
I know, they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, they're crap at night, aren't they? What gets me with solar panels, you see, when you need the power, which is in the winter, oh, but when you don't need so much, you get noodles of it in the summer.
I left here the other day, and I drove up to Derbyshire, and I passed Nottingham, and there was all the windmills, and it was a dull, still day. Yeah. No windmills were turning. I got up to Derbyshire, and there was just piles and piles of solar panels on all the fields, and it was dull, so they weren't producing any electricity. And then just before I got to Derbyshire, there was a big coal-fired power station churning out lots of smoke, but producing lots of electricity.
But the thing is, did you know there's diesel engines, there's companies that provide these big diesel engines that kick in when they need more power?
Yeah.
But they keep that quiet. But the thing is, with coal power stations, they got to a technology where they had scrubbers on them and everything else like that,
Absolutely.
where they were clean.
Yeah.
We were world leaders in that technology. And there's 400 years worth of coal we're sitting on it underneath the United Kingdom. 400 years.
Where all the coal-fired power stations were built, they were all built within a mile or two of the coal face.
Precisely.
It was no rocket science involved. You know, now we've got, I mean, from my side, if I put my green grocery hat on here, about 2/3 of what, if I put this in percentage-wise, so 3 years ago, as the UK farmers produced 60% of the food we eat in the UK. 40% came in from overseas, and that would be the things like bananas, avocados, grapes, stuff we just can't grow in the UK. Right, 2 years on, it's now 49%. And we're now, like the conversation we were having off screen earlier, we buy runner beans in from Kenya. Runner beans, Kenya.
And they're like eating razor blades because they're so bloody old.
We've got strawberries coming in from Turkey, Egypt, everywhere. It's just nonsense. You know, we've got to get back in this country to producing more food. We need to get more farmers and more food.
And healthy food. I mean, a
absolutely.
perfect example. Where, I mean, I live in the suburbs. I live in the home counties. And where I live, when I first moved here, you were sport for choice. It was noted for market gardening. Cucumbers, because it's the Lee Valley. Tomatoes grow well here. And you'd literally walk out of my house, walk for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you go, I think I'll go there. And you go into a greenhouse, farm shop, and they just cut it off the vine for you. You know, if you want some tomatoes, they were fresh.
Food.
They had pig farms around here. They had everything was sort of, and I'm not going back a long time. And then all of a sudden, the bulldozers came along.
Yeah.
And it's now they're just building all over the farmland. It's heartbreaking the way they're going.
Yeah.
And the council are hand in glove with the developers
every time.
It's. I mean, I won't go down that road today, but
follow the money.
Show on that because that's something that gets right up my ooter. I've had a lot of dealings with it, but the thing that gets me is that the food you get now, I've found, is tasteless.
Yeah.
I had some celery the other day from the supermarket, and it was like putting sort of like water in stringy water.
Yeah. What you got to understand is
horrible.
All of the food in the future, if the WEF has their way, will all be grown hydroponically.
Oh my God.
So bear that in mind. That at the minute, I can go to the field, cut a cabbage, you know, pull some beetroot, pull some carrots, dig some potatoes up, and I've produced my dinner. That will not. We will get to the point. I'll guarantee you this. If the public and the farmers do not stand up in the next few months, we will end up that we will not only be, farmers will be banned from growing food, and you'll be banned from growing food at home.
Yes, there's in America
coming.
They've started it in some states in America.
Yeah,
because was it health and safety? It'll always be for your safety, won't it? That's the thing. And what's the other thing that got me? It seemed to start when the foot and mouth disease came around in 2001, and the government knew it was coming because they had all the stocks of everything ready. They knew it was coming along, and I think that there was something more in that than meets the eye. It completely decimated the farming industry. And I remember I had a television in those days, and I watched this. What was that? What's that farming show they did every Sunday? I can't think what it was called now.
Farmers Weekly.
No, not Farmers. It was something, and it got more and more a political agenda of, we're going down to what's its farm where they've diversified and now they're selling cottage cream. Isn't that marvelous? You know, and and showing you how marvelous. Like it was like a kind of rose-covered spectacles, totally covered. And it's, look, you know, and we're going down to this farm now, and now they're showing children round. They've opened it up as a farming museum. Isn't that marvelous? What is this bullshit? You know?
Well, this is the problem. In our lifetime, right? I'm 56, so from my lifetime, when I first started school, we had a school garden. We grew our own vegetables. We knew where vegetables come from. Mum and Dad had an allotment. Granddad had allotments. You know, we understood as village. I was going to say the village people, but not weren't us. You know, but as the village children, we understood what and where food came from, what it was. You know, we knew. All right. Yeah. We probably didn't like semolina at school, but the chances are the only thing what was in it was something good.
Yeah.
You know, now when you look at the trash what comes out of supermarkets and how processed it is, it's got no goodness in it whatsoever. If it had, places like Holland and Barrett wouldn't exist because they wouldn't need to sell top-ups for everybody, would they?
Well,
I saw a cracking meme today, and it was a guy holding a sign up, and it said, like, if there's a health food section in a shop, what's the rest of the shop got in it?
Precisely. Well, actually, about Holland and Barrett, I've got to drag him on here kicking and screaming. There's a mate of mine, Miles Fleetwood, Dr. Miles Fleetwood. He runs a health food shop in Waltham Abbey, and that's just over the border into Essex, you see.
Yeah.
And what he says about Holland and Borough, well, I couldn't really repeat on this show. He reckons them and boots are not exactly good than what they sell. Because it's like vitamin C. If you buy vitamin C, say in a supermarket, it's not vitamin C. It's artificial. There's a difference between synthetic vitamins and real vitamins, and there's a big difference in the price as well.
Ooh,
and yes, but we won't go down there. Shall we have a quick sniffing chat, because there's loads of people. Yeah. So we got here Aunt Sally. It says, I used to keep insects to feed a pet chameleon. Did you really? Yes. They eat at least their body weight in food every day. Doesn't make economic sense to consider farming them. What, chameleons? I think it's BS to upset the people. You've got a point there. Yes. I think my neighbour owns a dog. I think he's an insect provider, because the dog craps in his garden in the summer. I think he's breeding flies. Anyway, won't go in there. And geoengineering must affect crops.
Oh, we'll come back to that.
I knew that would hit the one. I knew that would hit the raw board. Cat always comes up with something that hits the raw nerve. Thanks, Cat. That's a beauty. We've got South Coast Richard. Evening, Eric, Mark, Chris, Ralph, don't everybody, and we got what we got down here. Louise Wilcox, she's, I believe, from Suffolk as well. No, she's from Norfolk. So I'm terribly sorry. No, so she's just across the border.
Close.
Yeah. And now we've got a translator. Can we translate this from Hachi? I think he's had a coffee and the magic mushrooms might have died down a bit. If I was to suggest where the pig manure should be propagated, I'd be in Big Poo. That alongside Geordie Boy's doing a good job.
Is
yes.
he?
Well, yes. Well, you got some fans here. I'm loving this already, Cat Ollie. Well-informed chap, even if he is from Suffolk. Well, we can't hold it against him.
Well, what can I listen? This boulder hat, right, has done a few miles. This was my great-grandfather's. This was.
Really?
Yeah. That's why I wear it with a little bit of pride, see?
And he'll be turning in his grave if he knew you was fucking minister. By the way, are you without portfolio or with? Because Robert's lost his portfolio, so if you got one, give it to him.
I'll tell you what, if my grandfather was a great-grandfather was alive now, he would turn in his grave over where the bloody agriculture has got to, that's for sure.
Well, that's right. I mean, my particular thing is modern history. I love modern history, especially World War I and World War II. And I know for a fact that farms were forcibly taken over during World War II by the government.
Yeah.
They didn't produce the quota of food that they were told to produce. And after World War II, now, I think, was it in 1980, we produced about 80% of our own food. Because we had the most advanced agriculture in the world, basically.
Yep.
And
now
let's face
49.
49 from 80%.
Listen, let me tell you a quick story.
Okay.
You're talking about the war.
Yeah.
I had an uncle, Uncle Frankie Coppin, right? And he went off to war. True story.
Okay.
He went off to war. Right. So Sidney James Coppin went off to war, and we did some research on him. And one of the things we found out when I went to the museum was all I knew was he was in the 1st, 5th Suffolk, and he died in Gallipoli. So what I didn't know was when the story all comes out that the Germans were on one side of the field, the Turkish were on the other side of the field, the British were stuck in the middle. They made a run for it. The Germans had the wind in their advantage. They set fire to the field. As they fled, some of them got shot. He got injured and ended up in the convent with the nuns where they nursed him back to health. After the war, he died 8 years later with his injuries. However, what came out of it was he got 2 of the nuns pregnant.
Now, Cue for a gag now. If anybody's strictly religious, put their fingers in the ears. See, there's this elderly nun in Italy, you see, and she's over 100, and there's a television crew interviewing her, and they said, well, what happened during World War II? She said, well, she said, first of all, the Italian army came and all the nuns got raped except Sister Veronica. She said, and then the German army came and all the nuns got raped except Sister Veronica. Really? Yes. And then the American army came and all the nuns got raped except Sister Veronica. And the bloke said, hang on a moment. Why didn't Sister Veronica get raped? Oh, she doesn't like that kind of thing. Sorry. Not a good one.
You have to mind them nuns, they've got bad habits.
Oh. Well, do you remember the Abbey National Building Society? Well, there used to be a sign, was it? Get the Abbey habit. Someone had written underneath, screw nuns. But not exactly in those words. Oh, your grandfather must have been quite a character.
You can imagine how that story went down in the family, can't you, when I found out? I've got his bio sheet here. Anyway, listen. Now, let me come back to the point about geoengineering.
Right, I'll shove that up. I'll just give her a quick flash. Here we are. I'm going to give a quick flash there. Geoengineering must affect crops. Here we go. So
now,
far away.
I'll tell you a little something. So this year, I'm a great believer in the fact that when we were children, clouds were not delivered by aeroplanes, and they weren't long and thin, and they didn't turn into a pretty cloud formation and rain for 52 weeks of the year, and that didn't happen. Okay. This year in the farming industry, lambing, stillborn babies in sheep this year are up 50%. It's horrendous. So they're up 50% on stillborn lambs. Now, that has to be down to something. It's either down, in my belief, down to one of three things. Aluminium particles that are landing on the grass, MNRA jabs that have been given to animals that farmers are not aware about when a vet comes out and they do their routine injections, right? Or it's something in the feed. Now, during the pandemic, we had about 500 chickens at the time, and literally within 2 weeks of the food changing, we didn't know it had changed, but it clearly had. We went from having 500 eggs a day to about 6. Unheard of. Yeah. All the chickens just stopped laying. The more I looked into it, it was the same worldwide. All of the chickens worldwide stopped laying. People were saying their flock at home had stopped. They're across America. Most of Western civilization were having the same problem, that chickens were just not producing eggs. Now, what consequently came out of that the big farming industry didn't have a challenge. Everyone at home who had small flocks, what bought it in bags, had a problem. Now, if that isn't down to someone tampering with a food supply, I don't know what is.
So, can I just refresh over this? So,
go on.
Now we got sheep this year are 50% stillborn.
50% up on normal. 50% up on normal. Yeah.
And eggs, the small producers.
Yeah.
I mean, 500 chickens is a small. I don't have to be condescending. Weren't laying eggs, but the big boys, they were still. Well.
This year, the situation with calves is horrendous as well. Loads of farmers reporting stillborns on the calf side as well. And interestingly, this year, DEFRA have made it law that you have to report a dead calf. is that to check if it's working or not?
Now, also, do you know whether this is bullshit? After Chauvinil, I can never pronounce the bloody name,
Chernobyl.
And that place as well blew up. They said that there was lambs being born in Wales with 5 legs and all kinds of strange mutations. Was that just press, or was it to put people to stop people buying British lamb?
Why would you say such a terrible thing? Why would people want to stop people eating British food? My God, as if they would do that. It is funny that the wind laid right across us, though. That is interesting.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of things are, how shall we say, gearing in the direction that people might be misled to believe, or misinformed to believe, that we need to stop farming in this country. So here's one for you. We've now, as farmers, we're not allowed to move slurry in the winter months. Right, I know. You're thinking, well, it's just shit anyway, so it doesn't make no difference.
That's right.
So what they're saying the reason is because the best time for us to put slurry on is in the winter when the ground's dormant, because then it gets into the ground before you sit and drill your seed next year. No.
And
so they're saying that if the ground's, because the ground could be frozen in the winter, well, it can't be if we've got global warming, can it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If the ground's frozen and you put liquid fertilizer on, effectively liquid manure, it could run off into the river. Now listen, I don't know about where you are, Eric, but honestly, I've travelled around the country and some of what I've seen pumped into the water system, they don't need to be worrying about farmers, trust me.
Precisely, but not only that. I mean, all right, something dies in the river, but it has a way of cleaning itself. There's reed beds, there's all kinds of things, nature, trees. Now, when they used to dredge the rivers, they put the spoil on either side, and the river. I mean, where I live, there's springs all over the place. It's noted for springs, and there's a brook which is never dredged. So when it rains, I mean, luckily I live on top of or near the top of a hill. It's like Niagara Falls, slight exaggeration, down the road, down the lane rather, the back of my house. Well, it doesn't affect my property because it's pretty high up. But the thing is, they can't get to the root of don't want to get to the root of the problem. All they do is keep clearing out the drains and that, and wondering why there's a problem. No, you clear the bleeding brook out. That's the problem.
We're not, right. So as farmers, we can now get fined £1,000 if we clear a ditch out without permission. Honestly, this is what I say about the bureaucracy, the nonsense in the bureaucracy that in the farming industry now. Honestly, if we was to clean a river out, my God, it'd be the end of the world. Honestly, and this is the problem. None of the rivers are cleaned out anymore. They're not dredged anymore. You know, you've got this inherent problem that if you've got floodland and then you build on it, you want to keep the rivers cleaned. Because if you get, I'll tell you what, where I live in Bury St Edmunds, one of my friends, a local farmer, has just sold a 100-acre field for planning permission. And they offered him ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous money for it. He didn't want to sell it, and he's all this time his dad was alive. His dad was, no, you're not having it, you're not having it, you're not having it. Well, anyway, they put in a compulsory purchase order in the end to buy it, and it was for millions, right? In all of my life, there's a river runs down the back of it. In all of my life, I've never once seen that flooded, no matter how much water we've had. This year, it's standing under about 4 foot of water.
Yeah.
Now, you imagine when they start building on that.
Well, look, the main problem, as I see it, is impractical people telling practical people what to do. That's the real fact of the matter, impractical people, because I have no real knowledge of farming, but I know that the best time to shall we say, fling shit around is in the winter, because one, people indoors and don't smell it, and the freezing cold keeps the smell down. You do it in the summer, it sweats like heaven. Or springtime, it stink like heaven.
And you'll have all the flies.
Precisely.
Mind, you can eat them, so that's all right.
You got it in one.
Good
That's
source
what
of protein.
Flies, beautiful flies. Yum, yum. You got to laugh. You cry otherwise. But what?
You will eat it.
Yes. Have you ever been to Bedfordshire on a
Yes.
damp day with all the Brussels sprouts? Because you get the smell of farts. And the good thing about it is you can fart and nobody notices it. You know, because they might think, that smells like Chanel number 5 compared with the Brussels sprouts. But by the way, this going back to this, not eating English lamb. Of course, New Zealand lamb is very good, isn't it?
Well, I'll tell you a story about that as well. Now, let me tell you something. Now, I didn't know this, and of all my years in the food industry, I genuinely didn't know this. I went to see my butcher friend the other day, and I said, "Oh, Rick, I'll have some sausages and bacon." He said, "Mark, I haven't got any English lamb." So why not? He said, "It's just too expensive. I can't buy it." He said, "Just at the minute, I just can't even buy it, even if I want to." He says, "Don't you want any New Zealand lamb?" I said, "No." I said, "That comes into the country frozen," and he laughed. And he said, "What do you mean frozen?" I said, "Well, that's how they get it here, isn't it? They freeze it and they import it to the UK." And he went, "No." So what do you mean, no? He said, "Haven't you heard?" I said, "No." He said, "They gas it. It then takes 6 months to get here, to go through the system. They then undo the container what is stored in, letting the gas out. And at that point, it can start deteriorating naturally." I don't want to eat 6 months old meat if it ain't been frozen.
Oh.
And
also,
the public buy it on the cost of it. Wake up!
And did you know that New Zealand butter is not from New Zealand? It's from England or anywhere else that's cheap. It's not from New Zealand. It's the company New Zealand.
We see this a lot. If you look at packaging is one of the biggest things supermarkets con the public with. If you look, I was in that blue one where every little hurts.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you know which one I mean. And
I know what you mean, yes.
There was a pack of tomatoes with a Union Jack in the corner. I thought they must be English. Further down it said, packed in United Kingdom. Delivered from Holland, grown in Zimbabwe.
Well, do you remember when they had that famine in
Give me a Jack on it.
You remember when they had that famine in Ethiopia a few years back? I went into a local supermarket and they had string beans from Ethiopia. There's people starving there. Huh?
But here's the question. Were they? I do not believe. I've started going back through my life and seeing how we've had money removed from our pockets, let's say. And that's things right. Like Band-Aid and Live Aid and all these things what were great at showing us horrendous pictures of people around the world in the most awful situations we could ever imagine. And everyone went, "Please have some money, please have some money, please have some money." And then you talk to people from these countries, years on, and they go, "Don't know nothing about it." Yeah. When you had that situation and there was no food and there was no water, and they're like, "No." I've got a friend who's African, and she's lovely. She does it for me, I'll tell you. But that's aside the point, right?
That's the point, yeah.
She made the point to me the other day. She comes from Nigeria, and she said that Nigeria is such a fertile country. She said, "Mark, until you go out there, you can't imagine how green a country can be." She said, "You're led to believe." She said, "Have you ever been to Africa?" I said, "Well, no." She said, "Well, you ought to come with me." She said, "Because I'm telling you 100% certain. Africa is not like you're led to believe." I mean, I don't know about, let's say, about farming in general here. If you wanted to farm, let's say, on the moon, if you could fly to the moon, and if people had flown to the moon in the past, then they might have thought about farming there.
That's if they ever flew to the moon in the first place, but that's another question.
That's a whole new story.
Yeah, it's a whole new story. Yes.
Africa or the moon, it don't make no difference. 99.9% of people have never been to Africa, and if they did, they flew in, they landed at a resort, had a holiday, and flew out again. How many people do you know that have actually gone and travelled across Africa?
Nobody.
No, me neither. And it's not until I'm now, late last year, a friend of mine asked me for some assistance in his business, and he's a Nigerian guy, and he owns a shop in Ipswich in the middle of Suffolk, which is an international food store. And got talking to him about, it must be terrible for, where you've come from. And he said, no, we had loads of food. What do you mean? And you talk to them, and they look at you in absolute confusion that you could think they don't have any food when all their food's getting exported to the UK for us to then be able to have. And it's like, and he says to me, we export food because we've got so much of it. He said, you're the ones who don't grow enough food, not us.
Well, did you know that it was the British Empire that's kept this country a lot? You see, we hear about during World War II, I know I keep going back on my history thing, but we hear about the U-boats attacking ships coming from America.
Yep.
But the ships coming from America were carrying armaments. Meanwhile, there were ships coming from India, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, coming in with food to this country. But you don't hear about that. You don't hear about, but you see, the thing is, look at Zimbabwe or Rhodesia. So I like to do the flat sort of accents,
Yeah.
I worked with a chap that used to take the piss out of, because there's something about his accent that made us laugh. Like if he said hippo and bicycle, it just sounded funny. But anyway, he used to say, "Oh, you're from Zimbabwe. No, I'm from bloody Rhodesia." But he said it was I won't do it in his accent. He said it was the food bowl of Africa before.
Absolutely. Zimbabwe produced, I think it was at one point, it was about 70% more food than they needed.
Yeah.
And all of that used to come back to the UK. Now, I'll tell you, this is not about the British farming side, but we'll cover this while we're here because it has a knock-on effect to British farming. So when the war broke out in Ukraine, and we'd obviously got to go out there and cause carnage because we like to do that.
Oh yes, we're very good at wars, this country.
Well, absolutely, we're the best. I saw a map today. Out of all the countries in the world, I think it was 199 of them. I think I'm right in saying 199 have been invaded by the British, and there's about 22 what hadn't. And I put underneath, we haven't had time yet.
Mind you, it's like the Prime Minister left this afternoon for a world visit of friendly countries, and he was back within about half an hour. but yeah, sorry, you were saying?
I don't know.
Oh, you lost it. Lost the I'll tell you something, Mark. I can spell a naughty show because I call what upon BitChute the naughty show, you see, because you can say more on BitChute than screw YouTube, you see. So
yeah.
John Hamer said, I'm fed up with his bloody censorship on YouTube, and he'd only do shows now on my BitChute channel, which I bet you can't do them live, you have to do them recorded. So I feel a censored, shall we say, and I call it the naughty channel. I feel a naughty channel show coming up with yourself if you've got spare time to come on.
I think we ought to do that. I can tell you some things that would make your hair curl. Well, maybe.
Well, I don't know. I think I could tell you. But back to now. I'm not sure if I introduced Cage Bar, but if I didn't, hello, Cage Bar, and we've got here now we've got.
I remember.
What was it?
Ukraine.
That was it. Ukraine. That's it.
Now listen. Let me tell you a story. What happened was when we went into well, no, we didn't go into Ukraine, did we? We just supplied all the stuff for the Ukrainians to kill themselves.
That's right. Yes.
People are under the misconception that the reason food prices went up is because the Ukrainian war meant that the wheat and the barley, what would come in from Ukraine, wasn't coming in, so it forced the price of food up. Well, that's complete tosh. Let me just put that right out there. Ukrainian grain does not come to the UK. It all used to go to Africa. So what's actually happened is the only people who got was the Africans, as per usual. So if you did have pockets where they needed cheap grain, they ain't getting it because it's now worth too much money. The Polish farmers at the moment are on strike, right? And they're rioting all across Poland on the Ukrainian border. Well, if this war's so bad, and not saying war isn't bad, but just let's work with me here. If this war in Ukraine is so bad, would you not think the Polish farmers might have something better to do than protest on the Ukrainian border? Why are they protesting on the Ukrainian border? Because all the cheap wheat and barley was being shipped through Poland to go to Europe and then work its way out across Europe, not to Africa where it should be going, because Ukraine grain doesn't go to Europe. So if it went into Poland, the Polish could then sell it. The Polish government was shipping it on, saying it was Polish government grain, and they could sell it within the UK as well. Now, that then takes you to Dover, and you've seen the Dover farmers protesting about cheap imports. What cheap imports can we be talking about? I'll give you an example. Ukrainian grain is grown without any regulation whatsoever, and British farmers, we have got, honestly, I can't stress this enough, Eric, we have the best food in the fucking world. Without any sense at all, we grow the best food under the highest regulations that I've ever known worldwide. Okay? So our grain is grown to the best of its ability. As a farm, we cannot cut that grain if it's over 15% moisture. Okay? Because it's got to be prepped at that point to go into grain silos. If we cut it and it's 16%, we've got to dry it down to 15% before we can store it, because it might build mold.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to work under really, really, really strict regulations. Yet Ukraine can grow it and send it through Poland into the UK. It goes into the food processing system with no telling what's in it, how it's been grown, what chemicals they've used, what bioweapons have been used in the country, anything at all that we're not aware of. And that is allowed to be sold in the UK to people who produce animal food, people who produce flour, people who produce beer, wine, whatever it might be, what they need those crops for, that can come into the UK without any question at 2/3 of the price, and British farmers get screwed over again and no one questions it. And that's total rubbish.
Yes. And also, I've noticed that with flour, weevils are more present now than they've ever been.
Well,
Wherever they get their flour from, there's weevils in it.
It won't be if it's British flour.
Precisely. And I mean, I've got no time for government. Full stop. I don't vote. I don't actually, but I believe that if you're looking for a leader, look in the mirror.
Well,
Because,
yeah, I had the pleasure a few weeks ago of going up to Wellingborough and meeting with the right honourable, in my opinion, I have to say. I took the bowler hat because I wanted to impress the man with my ability. And I went to see Andrew Ridging.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Bridging, I've got to say, is an absolute gentleman. Now, I know he's the only person who's been to Parliament and questioned certain things. And those certain things obviously needed questioning. And absolutely. And I reckon if there was a party behind him, I think that man could do well on running our country, you know.
Could do, but I've always thought the reincarnation of Basil Fawlty would do a marvellous job.
Oh, well, this comes back to what I said earlier about the Ministry of Silly Walks, doesn't it?
That's right.
Because like the guy was just on the ball. He was a true gentleman, a true Englishman, and knew the job.
Well, people call me a gentleman because my office has got the word gents written on the door. Right. We got here. So, you've met Andrew Bridgen?
Yeah, I've met him several times now. He's a fantastic guy.
Yes, I think we're more independence. But the thing is, what we've got is we've got to have a way of getting Mr. Nice Guy in instead of Mr. Psychopath in, because the system's worked out to get the psychopaths up the greasy pole. You know?
It is. Well, what you've got to understand with all of that is that's all down to one thing. The conversation we won't have about Spondulix, you know, because
yes,
if you're prepared to grease the pole, as to speak, or have your pole greased, whichever it is, then there is the opportunity for people to achieve great things, people who shouldn't achieve anything in life because they're all but useless. Exactly. I saw a post on Facebook today. I won't mention whose it was, but it struck me entertaining because it said, men in greasy overalls built Great Britain, men in suits have destroyed Great Britain.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's right.
It is bang on the money, isn't it?
It is. And let's face it, let's put it this way, if you wanted to destroy this country, they've done a bloody brilliant job of it. I mean, you couldn't do better than destroy it the way they've destroyed this country. They really couldn't.
And it's the same all over Western civilization. I've got a friend who's a farmer out in the States, in Texas, and obviously they're having some massive challenges out there with immigration problems from the Mexican border. And, you know, I was having this conversation over the weekend with my friend who's the African lady, and I was having the conversation with her about immigration. And when you break down the United Kingdom or Great Britain, whatever you want to class it as, right? This country was built on the back of immigration. The railways were put in by the Irish, roads were put in by the Romans, the ports were put in by the Vikings. Whatever it was, this country's always been at the hands of people coming into the country. 1066, the French came, they built churches, they built all sorts of things, infrastructure, you know, and so there's a time and a place for it. A friend in Texas was saying to me, he said, it's now got so severe and such a problem because what's happened is, whilst they're all coming in, he said, we don't mind them coming into work. He said, but it's the drug issue which is bringing with them without no challenges. And the breakdown of the societal, you know, everything within the society.
Yeah, but they're letting the shit in. You see, the big problem, I mean, I was talking to Robert. Now, Robert comes on. His parents are from the Caribbean. And we were talking about the Notting Hill Carnival, where these women are tweaking this. And he said his parents, who were very conservative, would have been absolutely horrified to see it. And he said he is horrified to see it. And I worked with a chap who was second generation West Indian. His grandfather, was it second or third? His grandfather came over after the First World War. His father was in the RAF during the war. And he was born here as well. And he spoke with a broad Cockney accent. And he said that they are bringing in the shit into this country to make the real, genuine immigrants who came here because they liked England, they liked the culture, they liked everything about it, giving them a bad name. And he said, what's happening? He said, and people are turning against us. He said, when we are on their side, because, you know, we're letting the third world is opening prisons and letting people in. And to me, I think that in many ways, if we made those countries shall we say, places where, because they've got resources and things like that, where you wouldn't want to go overway around the world to make money, then the people that come here would be the people like my colleague I worked with, his grandfather, who came over here because he loved the culture. He wanted to come here. And you'd have people in places where they want to be, not because of money driving them there. And that's the big problem.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If we're going to go green around the world,
yeah,
and we're going to have, 27 trillion solar panels, we're going to need a massive amount of resources.
Yeah.
I mean massive amounts. The biggest continent in the world to contain those resources is Africa. If you want to invade to take those resources, what you don't want is any men of fighting age to be there to stop you.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it.
And look at China. China is investing in Africa like it's going out of fashion.
And encouraging all the people to leave so they can't be stopped. Who's at fault here? Are the immigrants at fault for wanting to leave and want a better life?
No, they're not at
right.
fault. You want to do this.
I genuinely don't have a problem with immigration, right? I have a problem with how it's been done. We stopped. I mean, you talk about history here. We stopped the German Navy. We stopped the Luftwaffe for taking the UK. We can't stop some rubber dinghies. Bollocks.
Wow.
Something ain't right.
I actually spoke to a West Indian chap once who came here on the Windrush, and he said he felt very conned, and had a very interesting conversation. And he said that he came over here because he was told that there was a shortage of men, and the Second World War wiped out most of the male population, and they needed them to learn a trade. And that, he said, I came here. He said, I thought I got into hell, he said, because the weather was so damn cold. And what they didn't tell you, you had to pay for heating, which we didn't have to worry about in West Indies. He said, and the second thing, he said, there was more than enough manpower here. And I was taking the work from, he said, and I felt really bad about it. From people that have fought in the war.
Yeah.
World War. And we had a really interesting conversation. And, I like that. Immigrants like that who spoke openly, and all this rubbish about racism and all this is nonsense. Yeah. It's absolute crap.
Absolutely.
I mean, I am totally against psychopaths. So I'm a psychopathist. If a person accused me of being anti-psychopath, only psychopaths that actually harm human beings. The other ones we can live with. The ones that harm human beings, I'm against. And if we all were against them, they wouldn't be able to climb up the greasy pole, would they? And it doesn't matter what religion, race, or what they are. Psychopaths are bloody psychopaths, and that's it.
Yeah. And I think on that note, what needs to happen is, we're seeing a complete Western societal breakdown at the hands of the WEF. Now,
yes,
it's my opinion that that's been done on purpose. It's my opinion that the only way this is going to stop, and I hate to say this because I've lived in a country that I'm proud of for 56 years, and I've been blessed by the fact that we've never had war to deal with, we've never had hunger to deal with, and we are absolutely blessed to be here. Yes. Sometimes we think it's a shit show, but it's our shit show, right?
We're a lucky generation that we
not have without a doubt. And when my dad's in his mid-80s, and when he talks about, they were the war children, he was born 1939, I think. They went through ridiculously hard times that we've never seen. And I do think this is where the woke society comes from. I'll give you an example. So my great grandparents went through the war. Yeah. And they went off to war and so forth. My grandparents then wanted to make the job for their children a little bit easier. So they after the war, when things got better through the 50s, they started doing quite nicely and got a few quid together and, put a television in the house because that was good for the family. They made sure the kids had better things than they had, better clothes, better shoes, whatever it might be. Then come along my parents who wanted to make sure that we had everything we could want because they wanted to make our life easier and better than their life was, right? So they gave us nicer things. We had our own bedrooms. We had central heating. When I was little, we used to have frost on the inside of the windows, but not now.
I remember that. Yes.
Not now. So then I come along and get my own children, and I want to namby-pamby them so fecking much to give them everything they could possibly want in case one of their friends is, got something else and they get offended about it, or, and you then look at my grandkids and how they're treated, and you think to yourself, my in God, we have become such a pathetic, useless fucking lot of people now that
spot on.
I
mean, my father went through. Sorry, I don't want to chime in.
No,
but my father went through World War II. He was tough, very tough, and what he survived. I don't think the generation today. Look at the First World War and the Second World War. I don't think they could handle it. Or they just wouldn't be able to handle it. I mean, my attitude: if someone has a problem, a bloke has a problem, wondering whether he's female or male, a swift kick of the goolies will sort the problem out instantly. I mean, there we are. I mean, actually, between you and I was going to join the library. It's a rough world in the library. So I went. So I looked up. Well, the thing is, if it's free, you might as well have it, mightn't you? I'd probably never go there. And I looked up,
like pass.
And it asks you what gender you are.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a new one there called MX. So I was but there's no column there. I'm left-handed. There's no column there for left-handed. What about left-handed people? I'm left-handed. And what about people like myself who are bullshit title fluid? That is, you wake up in the morning and you're a professor. Midday you might become a doctor, and then later on you might become like a senior farmer or something. Because
hang on a minute.
Title fluid.
That works for Bill Gates. Why shouldn't it work for you?
Precisely. That's it. You see. So I'd tell of all people that I'm, title bullshit fluids. See. So anyway, shall we have a quickie in chat?
Go on.
Why not? 0 carbon, 0 plants, 0 people. No one but them anyway. Perfect. That's what we like. Right, we got Urban Fox. Hello. Hi, Chris and Mark, as Urban Fox. I think the insects is a bit of a red herring. I think GM food designed to do dubious things to us is where it's going. Also, WF recently said we need to take food off the land. Damn MC says most oxygen comes from the ocean. Right, and it's nice to know that Stephen is. Thanks, Louise. How are you? I take it you're still alive and well. That's good, right? We like to know that people are alive and well. Right, I've got to jump a few here because there's a lot in. That's just all corporations with CEOs are the useless waste of oxygen. All corporations lead back to the Vanguard Group. The Crown are the only landowners. Men and women can't own anything in the corporate world.
Absolutely.
And I tell you what I'm fed up with: delegation management. Now, what you get is these delegation managers that know nothing about the industry they're going into. Now, I won't mention any names, but there's one bozo who comes from the food industry who's now running a housing firm. And if you send letters to this bozo, it's delegated. Now, how can a person from the food industry know something about the building industry? Huh? I mean, it's like me opening.
Well, it's worked for all the ministers in Parliament, hasn't it?
Well, that's right. I mean, for example, I know nothing about poodles. All I know about poodles is they've got 4 legs, food goes in one end, and a pedestrian hazard comes out the other end. You see, That's all I know. And they're snappy little bastards. That's another one. You don't put your hand near them; they're snappy. and more people get bitten by poodles than Alsatians in a year. Did you know that statistically?
Do you know more people die of being kicked to death by a donkey and all?
Really?
Yeah.
Know that? Now,
Vicious.
are they really vicious little sods? Now, the thing is, well, I think I might blow a raspberry next time I drive past the donkey sanctuary. Then in that
I
case.
would.
So anyway, what I was going to say is, bloody, I've lost my thread now.
Sorry.
But that's it. I'm perfectly qualified to open a poodle clipping place because I know all about it. You know, if I could open a poodle clipping parlour, I'll be brilliant for it because I know nothing at all about poodles. And this is what's happening. It's all delegation. You sent to the head honcho in a council, delegate, delegate, delegate. That's all they do. They might as well have a bleeding mannequin dummy there. And that's what government ministers do. Delegate, delegate, delegate all the time.
Yeah, well, they're just a level of bureaucracy we don't need, aren't they?
Well, precisely.
You know, it's nothing a good length of rope wouldn't sort out, let's be honest.
Oh, you're talking about medieval bungee jumping. That's Absolutely. Where you put you round the neck, and it's elastic, so it goes dying, dying, dying. It's more entertaining, isn't it? Go, oh, look, how many times.
In French had it right, you know. They sharpened up that big thing, they sharpened that up, and that worked a treat.
Well, someone made a guillotine and put it outside the French Parliament, didn't they? I'll tell you what I saw the other day. Now, this is typical this country, okay? There's a pedestrian underpass near where I live. Why? I don't know, because it's semi-rural. And the road at the moment, although they're building like anything.
There you go.
The council do not clear the drains out. So when we weave with drain, because it's been piss-istant the last couple of weeks, or the whole year it's been piss.
I was going to say, last 6 months.
Yes, it's been piss-istant.
It's because the cloud planes have been out.
That's right. Anyway, this is flooded, this underpass. It's always getting flooded. So there's signs everywhere saying flood. And I felt very tempted to take a Sharpie along and write an arrow, sky, path, dog shit, clogged up drain. I mean, you can see it's a bloody flood. Do you need to have a sign to tell you?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why people break down in the middle of floods and they'll say, like, well, I didn't know how deep it was. Could you see the in bottom? Oh, no. Then it's clearly deep, isn't it?
It's like workshop manuals.
Yeah, but it weren't a sign.
That's right. Workshop manuals 60 years ago apparently said how to connect a battery. Modern ones say don't drink the acid.
Yeah, you're right there.
Right. Now we've got here Urban Fox, who says here, some studies suggest we can't afford to lose any more carbon from the atmosphere.
I'd agree.
As it will be below the level needed for our optimum health.
Yep.
Because they pump CO2 into greenhouses, don't they?
Yep.
I see this all as an anti-human agenda. Yes.
I'd agree.
Yes. Now, we've got Louise Wilcox. Don't say anything. She's from Norfolk, but we won't. We'll forgive it. It's a bit between you.
Don't mention the war.
Don't mention or Norfolk. You see, there are two things you mustn't. Land truly belongs to no one, and we as people need to stand against the feckers that are trying to dictate how we live. So Stephen Truthseeker says these solar panels are a bit crunchy. As he said earlier, yeah, they are a bit. No.
I'll rest my case.
Now we've now got a translator to try to understand what Hatchie is talking about. I think he's had some more magic mushrooms. He says, "I recommend Godfrey Bloom as our current king." Yes, you know Godfrey Bloom. You seen him? Oh, Godfrey. No. Yes, he's quite a laugh. Rhubarb stalker talker from the House of Highgrove. What a WAF. It stinks. Yes.
Yes, we'd agree with that bit.
Now, we got Cat Holly. I think it was in the Conservative Woman today. I just read about some folks getting very active to oppose a proposed solar farm in Lincolnshire. they won their case and the solar farm was cancelled.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a bloody solar charger on my car because keep this to yourself. Don't tell anybody, because whenever I tell them I've got this form of car, when I phone up for insurance for it, people say, have you had a history of mental illness, sir? I've actually got a smart car. I know it's sad, isn't it?
They're all
smart. Yeah, I know. 595 cc's of raw throbbing power there, you know.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can beat Johnny Onion Man onion seller off from the lights. Just anyway, on the story. What was it? I've lost. What was it now?
Lincolnshire.
Yeah. Lincolnshire, was it? What was I talking about? Smart cars. Lost the thread there. No, don't know what it was. Oh yeah, that's it. They eat batteries. My one eats batteries.
Yeah.
So I got a little solar charger on the side. Bloody brilliant when the sun shines. When the sun goes in, useless. I said freaking useless. I didn't say yes. The wind turbines cause more of a carbon footprint than they produce electric.
Yep.
If my memory serves, wind power gives less than 1% of our entire electricity.
Let me tell you something about wind turbines. I don't know if you know this. You know, they stand in the field and they don't do anything.
Yes, apart from killing birds. Yeah.
To get them big ones going, they have an electric motor on them. And that's what starts them rolling. So they've got an electric motor. So the electric's stored in the battery packs. So it's always got to have a full battery pack before it can release any electricity to the grid in case they want to start it when it stops. It's brilliant.
Well, we better not keep mentioning this too, though, but I had an idea. Why don't they go in for breeding hamsters, and you could have hamsters on wheels with little generators that would generate enough electricity, I think, if the whole country went in for it, to produce for about what, a barn or a shed, maybe?
I don't know, but you say that. How many treadmills must there be in all these gyms up and down the country now? People don't do a day's work and they have to go to a gym to get fit.
Oh, that's
you imagine if they had all them treadmills wired up to the grid, that would be an easy option, wouldn't it?
It would be. Do you know something? Now, I can't stand gym. I've never been to a gym. No interest in mine. I like walking. In fact, I like driving. I'm a petrol head because I've not only got a smart car, but a Toyota as well, which is a classic. And I think there's only 5 in the country, not Toyotas, but there's the Toyota Carina. And I love cycling as well. Something about cycling I like. And I assure you, I do not wear Lurex or anything like that. I'm, the old style. Anyway,
that's not what I heard, but
yeah, but sort of pipe and smoking, boating a pipe and a cat, that type of thing. Anyway, I went for a walk the other day, and someone's turned the lights out. Back here we go. That's it. Happens every week. So what I was going to say, there's all these people in the gym going with their headphones in. I have walked for 40 minutes down to this out of town superstore, and I've had it for free, and I've got fresh air in my lungs. I'm walking along. Why pay to walk in one of those air conditioned sweaty, smelly holes and get it for free? I don't get it. I mean,
do you not see that that's just one of the other ways we've been duped to take money out of our pocket?
Yeah.
£100 a month for the Sky membership.
Yeah.
£50 a month for this, £20 a month for that. I remember my granddad, when I was a kid, my granddad literally worked from morning till night. And he was retired, he was well past retirement age, bless him. He worked all the time. And their expenses were sweet. They didn't need anything. Granddad grew all the food, Nan cooked it all. They cooked on an open fire, on a wood burning fire. And life was very cheap for them. Now, and that's why they only had one job. Nan didn't need to work. I mean, she worked 24 hours a day around the house, don't get me wrong, but she didn't go and have a job. They didn't need to. Now, both parents have to go to work because the kids want a phone each. They want a contract on that. They want broadband in the house. They want Sky television. They want a television in each room. It just, the stupidity goes on. I watched a video yesterday of an Irish lady who sells second-hand cars and talking about electricity and EVs especially. She was saying that the second-hand car market for EVs is absolutely on its backside because they obviously come with a warranty. If the batteries go, it's going to cost more to replace the batteries than it is the car.
Correct.
So once the car gets to about 18 months old, the dealers don't want anything to do with it because they don't want to sell it on because it will come in their warranty, and if the batteries go, they're going to lose a fortune. So she said, we've now got people that have paid 70, 80 grand for a motor, and it's actually worthless. It's 18 months old and worthless.
About 5 years ago, I saw a listing up for 3,000 quid. And it was up at Bishop Stortford. I thought, why is it so cheap? Is it misprint? The reason why, its maximum range was 60 miles. I would have thought 60 miles with a favourable back tailwind and on a perfect day, you know, with no still day, no rain, nothing like that, no heating, you know. I mean,
no window wipers, no lights, no aircon.
Well, which I can do a quick plug here. Where are we? Because if you go over to my here, I think here it is. Come on, here it is. If you go over to my BitChute channel, I've done a show with John Hamer, the external combustion engine, with author John Hamer, and exclusive to BitChute. So there we go. So that, oh, hang on, there we go. So that's the show to see, and I'm quite amazed at how many people have watched that show. It's quite a lot. The external combustion engine. Now, we got produce our own and support our local farmers. Yes, here in Norfolk. Where's that? Somewhere up there, isn't it? I have seen the production in fields falling massively over the years that I've lived here. Yes.
Well, I don't know if Louise is in Norfolk. She might have seen this on the news today that Bernard Matthews is shutting one of their biggest plants in Norfolk.
Really?
Yeah, relocating it. I don't know where they're relocating until I didn't finish reading the story, but moving the one out of Norfolk. Well, they employ hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people.
Well, the only people the only things that's going to be, the only life that's going to be happy about that is the turkeys, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Chris,
well, that goes to show you what you're going to be eating next Christmas, doesn't it? I mean, it ain't going to be turkeys.
It's going to be crickets.
Crickets.
Now, Chris the gardener said loads of, and they've Chris says loads of farmland around here being built on. Yeah, same here. Hertfordshire is just a free for all.
Yeah.
And now we got
Eric. Can I ask a quick question on that point? What he's just raised there about building all the houses. Where's the fucking people coming from to fill these houses?
Well, precisely. I mean, near where I live, they're going for 600,000. 600,000. And if you saw the way they were built, to be straight with you, you don't slam the door to it because bleeding roof tiles are falling.
Yeah, 600 grand.
Yeah, 600 grand. And you know, you just think,
what chance have the younger generation got?
Well, this is one thing, because my background's architecture, and the thing is that I always said for a long time, is going off at a tangent now, they should hand house building back to the people. Now that sounds a bit weird, but we could have some beautiful houses here in this country. And I absolutely hate rabbit hutch estates because it's a form of, well, blandness, communism.
Yeah, but you've also got to understand the other side of this. Right. When I was a child, after the Second World War, they built lots of council houses across the country. And what did they all have? Big gardens. So you had an allotment, you had room to keep chickens and everything else. Now you live in a rabbit hutch and you have to go to Tesco's. You've got to go to supermarkets.
What other supermarkets are available?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have to go to a supermarket.
Yeah.
Right? So what's happened is, over that 50-year period, we've got rid of the ability again to feed ourselves, and we've come up with this system where the corporations control the housing, the mortgages, what you can eat, everything else.
Yeah.
And it's all been deliberately geared.
I agree with you. I agree with you, because I believe that a house should cost the price of a second-hand car. And you can do it that way. Because you think about it, how can a house that was built 100 years ago be sold? I mean, my granddad bought a house in the 1920s, or it was my granddad, in 1920s for £100, which was a lot of money then.
Yeah.
Same house in Ugly Green in Essex, what place, Ugly Green, is going for about £300,000 upwards. And it's a timber, it's a glorified shed. I shouldn't say that, but it's a timber framed house.
The other side of this is after the war, when they built all the council houses, right?
Yeah.
They were built houses. You could take a sledgehammer to them, you wouldn't damage them.
Correct.
Right? So people bought them for next to nothing. The council built them for next to nothing. They sold them under Maggie Thatcher for next to nothing. The money didn't go back into producing more houses. That money was swallowed up by the council. By the government.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? So them houses are now coming up for 100 years old, let's say. They're 80 years old now, a lot of them, aren't they?
Yeah.
Can you genuinely, and I mean genuinely, believe that in 80 years' time, the houses they're now building will even be standing?
No. Well, I was actually built a council house.
Yeah, me and all.
Yeah, I was born in a council house, and the back garden, you couldn't see the house. It's like a huge field.
Yeah.
And you had a massive garden.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, I've got a big garden where I live now. I mean, my house was built in 1976, and it is a big garden. It's about, as I say, it's because Fockham is the smallest country in the world. It's 60 by about 20. People say, what, 100 miles? No, feet. Because if the television man comes, the television licensing, I say, well, I'm sorry, you need an entry visa, and that costs £5,000, please. You've got to be bureaucratic.
Did you? I don't know if you saw on Richard Vogue's show the other day, he had a gentleman on there talking about the sovereignty of farms and how farmers can change the ruling of how their land is allocated, right?
Yes, I saw that.
So this was interesting. You saw it. Okay, so if I just bring everyone up to spec on this. So when you fill out your paperwork for land registry, it asks you who your local authority is. So if you're in the position that you say, for my sake, West Suffolk Council, then the council has the right to go on your land because it's belonging to them.
Correct.
If you feel that, if you go back to land registry, and the guy did say what form you have to do it under, and I can't remember, but
I remember that. Yeah.
You can go back to land registry and change an adaptation to the paperwork which says that you are the local authority, taking away the council's right to have anything to do with or the government's right to have anything to do with your land. It removes the planning permission BS, things like DEFRA for farmers. And so I've been going and telling farmers about this who are now looking into it. And I just think that's brilliant.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's also, you're the keeper of your vehicle. It used to be the owner. And another one that gets me is it's a dwelling and what is it now? The
inhabitant. Yeah.
An occupier. I'm not an occupier. I'm an owner. I'm not an occupier. I don't occupy. It's very clever wording. But I think the good thing is to counter-subvert and play them at their own game. Hit them back with what they're coming throw at us. Because they don't like it, do they? They don't like it up.
I don't like council tax. And I wrote to my local council and I said, I wonder if you can help me. Because they said, apparently I hadn't paid. And I said, well, I'm not adverse to paying for what I want. Could you please tell me a breakdown of what the items, what I want, and here's what I want. I'd like to pay for the fire engine, and I'd like to pay for the police should I need them. And I don't agree with education in school, so we can get rid of that.
Yeah.
Parents should have to train their kids, because you only send kids to school for two things. One, because you don't want to look after them all day. And two, because you want them to grow up to be stupid, because that's the only outcome they come out with. Right?
Spot. Yeah.
It's true, isn't it?
It's 100% true. Yeah.
Right? So I went through my list and I wrote to them and I said, these are the things I'm happy to pay for. Can you send me a bill? And they said, no, it don't work like that. You have to pay for everything. I said, well, hang on. I said, look, I run a farm shop. When you come in the shop, I don't say to you like this, it's £3,500, do I, when you get to the till, on the grounds that you might have wanted everything in the shop. You only want to pay for what you've had. Well, I'm only asking for the same thing. Well, after this had gone on for a couple of years, they gave up and they don't write to me anymore.
Excellent. Good for you. I mean, to me, council tax, it's like going down to the supermarket and buying a packet of 6 posh biscuits.
Yeah.
And you only get one. You say, well, in there, I bought 6. I said, oh, yeah, but it's cutbacks. And of course, there's global warming in that. That's why you only got one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. And also, when you work it out, now there's 55 houses around where I live. 55. It used to be fields all surrounding it.
Yeah.
Now, each council, everybody pays an average about 2,000, 2,500 council tax. You've times that by 55. You could probably get someone sweeping the roads.
Filling the potholes.
That's right, filling in the potholes. Bobby walking around.
Yeah, at least.
Someone to take your bins. And if they don't do it right, because they throw crap all over the place now, because they empty these wheelie bins, all paper all flowing everywhere. Well, you take sod off, we get somebody else that does it properly. You know, it would work. But anyway, now we got here F&M was cooked up towards the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the EU in cahoots. Yes. And
100%.
You've got a fan here, Krista Gardner. I think you're spot on, Mark. They're going to try and stop us growing our own. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. That's on the cards.
Now, Hatchie, who's now sobered up, says, bang on, growing a tomato plant will be illegal. That's right.
Yeah.
Right, mate, we're just having a laugh. We're not... right. Now, great doc on that called Slaughtered on Suspicion, a UK column film. You can get it on YouTube. Oh, that's interesting. That show I was talking about earlier. Stephen the Truth Seeker said Country File.
Completely fecking useless, that programme.
Did you feel like throwing a brick at the television screen?
Do you know what? I can honestly say in all my life, that's been running for years. It's achieved nothing for farming. You get Clarkson Camels done one series. When he did the first series, every farmer in the country went, thank God for that. That was like an epiphany for the farming community to go, well, look at that. Someone's actually talking the truth. Country File.
Country File. Paedophile, Marla.
Yeah,
Sorry, not Clarkson, but I'm talking about the bloody programme. I mean,
you take the O out of it, that'd be close.
Yes, right. Now let's have a look here. Now this is Kat. Sorry if I'm in a few here. I'm sorry because I can't get everybody in. The farmer protests look very staged and professionally choreographed. Rather suspicious, if you ask me.
Well, no, listen, I'll tell you a little something. When the No Farmers, No Food campaign started, it started with 7 of us basically getting together on social media, having a little bit of bitch about the situation. And what people have got to understand in where we are at present, and this is my opinion, I'm entitled to it, free country. I spoke to a friend of mine called Damien, right? And Damien married a German girl whose dad was a German farmer. And Damien's out in Germany living. And I said to him, I said, Kinnell, I said, you've done well to organise that in a few days. He said, what do you mean? I said, like, you got them German, you completely cut Germany off within a few days. He said, we were planning that for 18 weeks. And I was like, 18 weeks? He said, yeah. He said, so this is why it's taken so long to organise the UK. And people will understand where we're going in the end. So to start off, he said we won the hearts and the minds of the general public. So we got the general public behind two things. One, there is an issue, and two, there will be food shortages. And I would say at this point, we are in stage one. We're telling the public on social media what's the issues. We're warning people there will be food shortages for those who are listening, because the food will simply not get to the big places.
Correct.
And then finally, in due course, the tractors will start to mount. And just like they did in Germany initially, they had their food protests where they went out and tested the water to see what public were going to say. And then on one day, they just took out the entire country. And the same principle has been levelled across every solitary country in Europe. This country will not be any different. Be assured. It's coming. It can't not. I had a conversation the other day with my ex-brother-in-law, and he's a tank commander, you know, one of them big things with, you know, the big spouty things, what shoots bullets and things. And he said, you farmers haven't got a clue. All right, why is that then? He said, well, the thing is, he says, like, you have to understand. He said, they just bring the tanks out against you. Maybe. So how many tanks the British Army got then? He says, 300. Then how many are in the UK? He says, probably about 90. How many of those are working? He said, probably about 40. I said, so we've got 650,000 tractors. You've got 40 tanks, and you think you're going to win the war? Well, if the farmers go out, they go out because of one thing: total frustration. They'll also be going out on the grounds that they do not want to, but they feel because the government's not listening, they've got no option. And that's where we are. And the frustration's building and building and building.
I can understand that. I mean, look what happened in the dairy industry. Welsh farmers were actually committing suicide. I think it's about one a week or something ridiculous. I mean, it's horrendous. It really is. And now, Aunt Sally's. Now, I won't read this one out because it mentions a word which is dodgy on YouTube. So yes, I agree there. Yes, I agree. I mean, to me, the only difference between government and the mafia is that if you don't pay the mafia, they will physically hurt you, and if you don't pay the government, they'll psychologically hurt you. That's about the only difference. Now, Aunt Sally said Mark must have grown up in London. He's got a strong London accent.
No, and I hate the smoke with a passion.
Oh, yeah, I detest London.
I grew up in Suffolk. I've lived in Suffolk biggest percentage of my life. However, when I just as before I was leaving school, I got a job on the market, and I used to go down to Covent Garden a lot, and I loved Covent Garden. And I spent quite a bit of time working down there from sort of 17, 18 period when I was at university doing my agricultural side, but used to subsidise that. I used to go down to London and pick up fruit and veg and come back and sell at the weekends and things. And so you can soon end up, Aunt Sally, with a very strong London accent. And I hate the smoke. I do not like going down there at all.
Same as, do you know something? I actually got this phobia about London, and my cousin has as well. It gives me manic depression. I can't stay in London. I work there. I tolerated it, but I couldn't wait to get out. I just can't stand. I don't like cities, full stop. I like to be in the countryside. The farther I'm away from cities and towns, the happier I am. Now, what's this one? Krista Gardner. I think I can read this one out. 3 nuns sitting on a park bench. Flasher walks up to them and opens his coat, revealing his his old fella to them. 2 of the nuns had a stroke. The 3rd one couldn't reach.
Right, the old ones are always the best.
They're always the good ones, and I've got another nun joke, but I think it'd upset most of the population. It's a bit foul. Right, Jane Trent Ruby. Good evening, Chris and everyone. Later gate. Note. What do you think? I think lines and a note from parents would be a necessity for this one. Late again, yes. That's no excuse. Oh, I
Sounds a bit like my school report. Could try harder.
Now we've got another one from Kat. Thing is, all the European farmers struggling too, but we know we are all targeted in this agenda.
100%.
Have you ever read? Have you ever seen his films, Yuri Bezmenov, on Ideological Subversion? Oh, you must see it. He did these. He escaped from Soviet Union, and he did a series of lectures in America in the early 80s, and he explains in the early 80s what it is now, what it's like now. And he says it's ideological subversion. Now, there we go. Now,
I mean, that's when you have to realise about carbon, and we talk about getting rid of carbon off the planet.
Yeah,
there's only one carbon they want to remove from this planet, and that's us.
That's right. Yes,
us.
But they also, you see these freaky things with the elites where they're very much into cannibalism and things like that.
Yeah.
But you think about it. I mean, you could eat people like Tony Blair, but I think he'd be a bit grisly, wouldn't he? He'd be a bit sort of. No, I don't think so. No.
Be a bit bitter.
Well, it's a bit like the three cannibals, you see, and one of them dies, and that leaves me easily into this gag, you see. And one says to the other one, well, it's a sight to waste him, isn't it? He says, yeah. He says, well, how are we going to share him out? So one says, well, look, when I lived in England, he said, I lived in Hartlepool and supported Liverpool, a football club. He says, so I'll have the heart and the liver. The other one said, well, I lived in Cockfosters and supported Arsenal, but I don't feel very hungry at the moment.
Listen, I'll tell you another one of them. And he said, there's three cannibals and one of them dies. And he says to Shaker waste him, he says, well, Arvin, he says, you start on that leg and I'll start on that leg. After about 5 minutes, he says, how are you getting on? He says, I'm having a ball. He said, you bastard, you're eating too fast.
Now, I got the giggles. Now, there is sewage being pumped into the rivers now. Yes.
Because that's always a good thing, isn't it?
Oh, of course. Yes. I have seen the last few days many trees being taken down to lead the water elsewhere to actually cause floods. They are also removing dams around the world too. Yes. Now it says here that farmer who dredged the river got sued by environmental, and locked up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's it. Now it says here. Now this is an interesting one. Poop bang dos. That's a nice one. Poop bang dos. It's always planned out. Mass immigration, civil war in England in the next 80 years. Yeah.
I don't think it'll be the next 80 weeks.
Yeah. Now it says here, surprise UK colon. Dan, UK colon isn't covering the Euro farmer protests. Euro colon. That's a classic. Now, this is an interesting one. What's your response to this? That's life, but not as we know it. People can't seem to see it, but the farmers are digging their own graves. How do you feel about that, mate?
I do feel at the moment, right, so let's think about this logically. If you want to remove the people from the planet and you want to remove the farmers from farming and you want to use the psychology side to this, what's the quickest way to achieve that? Get the farmers to go out, cause anarchy like they are in Europe, and bear in mind that the farmers in Europe have been promised all these get-outs now, but still haven't gone home. So that says to me that they do not believe what they've been told by the government, right? So they're just pushing them further and further and further. I think where we'll end up with this is we will end up with civil war. I genuinely believe that. I don't want to see it, but I can see that we're being pushed towards the possibility of that happening. So if you can create civil unrest, which they are pushing towards, and farmers will go out and help create that civil unrest because of their frustration, there is a challenge. You then come up with a solution as a government that you can help with that challenge. You enforce martial law in answer to the challenge, and then you've got everyone exactly where you want them. Do I think that's where we're going? I do. And I do not see there's another option apart from fight back against it.
The thing is, people will only we're only 3 meals away from something beginning with R, which I can't mention on YouTube. And I think that I personally think what their plan is to do away with the quality food and just have shit that people can eat. Because I mean, I was in a supermarket the other day, Iceland, and yes, I do go in there occasionally, and there was a woman very obese with different load of children from different partners, I assume, I don't know, and her trolley was full of crisps, white bread, jelly babies, all shit,
all healthy stuff, yeah,
nothing healthy. And what are those kids going to grow up like? You know,
well, monkey see, monkey do, doesn't it?
Precisely. Life, but not as we know it. I'm talking about Yuri Bezmenov. Yes, ex-KGB. Great interview. You need to see it several times. It is genius. The one that he did with G. Edward Griffin was brilliant, and he predicted that communism was coming here, and this is what we've got: communism. They say it's fascism, it's not. It's communism.
No, it's not. It's communism.
Yes, it's through the back door communism.
Yeah.
There's somebody did a number of films who I can't mention his name because it's on YouTube, but he did a thing, Communism by the Back Door. That's what it is. Yeah. And I think most of the people on this show know what it is. Now we got here what we got here. I thought Ishit wanted civil war. I thought Ishit wanted civil war. Can you clarify that? Sorry, I'm a bit thick tonight. I don't know. And Bob, hello, Bob. Hello, Rob. Olio. Government is waiting for civil unrest.
Yeah.
They're planning for it.
Yeah.
Cat, it was a typo, honestly. Right. Now, what we got here? Chris has found a soulmate for terrible jokes. I got some real crackers, but I couldn't mention them on YouTube.
We'll have to have a private viewing session.
But I wouldn't say smutty. I mean, let's face it, very clean, these jokes, aren't they? Now, someone said, Hadji said, I wouldn't feed Tony Blair to a dog if it was hungry, not the right sort of sausage. Because you know that apparently he did something naughty to a bloke in a public lavatory in Longacre in the early 80s. Do you know about that with Blair?
No.
Yeah, and he was. This is true. I'm not joking. And he was taken to what's that? Bow Street Police. And when he gave his second name, not his first name, it was what was it? Indecent. Was it act with another man in a laboratory? And when he came to power, unfortunately, what records got burnt? Isn't that amazing? Slapped my thigh, what a surprise! And I've often said they need a plaque, blue plaque there. With this is where outside the lavvy, this is where Tony Blair was. And they could have sort of a Tony Blair lookalike with his trousers down. to pose with Japanese tourists. Oh, look, Tony Blair. It'd be good, wouldn't it? You know.
To be fair, that won't be the first time Tony Blair's been caught with his trousers down, will it? Let's be honest.
Well, what was he called now in university? Was it Miranda or something, wasn't it? Right, we got here. We got Muslim Turks created Pfizer. Oh, I've said something. Tizer. That's what I just said. Tizer. Yes, Tizer. Fact, minorities didn't take. I better not carry on reading this. Yes, that's very true. Pop, bang, dosser. Sorry, mate. I can't read it all out because, you know, the old censors. It set the klaxons off in YouTube HQ. They haven't already been bloody set off, you know. But I said Tizer. Yes. League of Gentlemen. That was the special stuff. That was one of the most creepiest bloody comedy shows I've ever seen. It was weird. It was, especially the one where the bloke with black paint all over his face goes in and marries this bloke dressed as a woman. I find that really creepy, you know.
What you have to understand, Eric, with all of this stuff is, as we know, the occult, the WEF especially, have to tell you what's going to happen.
That's right. Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that we've seen in films like, I don't know, right through from Terminator in the day when we all laughed and went, can you imagine they'll ever have robots that clever, right? Yeah. So things like the Hunger Games, where we've seen the extreme of poverty to, you know, what the rich will do to play the poor off against each other. It's all there. It's all laid out. You know, people can look at this, but, you know, I've been called several things in my life. You know, conspiracy theorist, I have to say, is not the worst one I've ever been called. However, but most of those weren't my ex-partners, so they were entitled to call me worse things. But, you know, when you look at someone calling you a conspiracy theorist 5 years ago, now you can look at it and go, well, I've been proved right on all of that. Call me something new.
Well, that's right. That's right.
You know, all of this stuff has come to play. All of this stuff, what they predicted would come to play, is out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Holly says, I read they have special cannibal butchers. This is the elite, where they order their supplies from. The few in the crew.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's in bad taste, isn't it? But yeah, it's right. I mean, we're just coming up to our time now. It's flown, isn't it, tonight? I mean, you wouldn't think we've been on for 2 hours.
Time always flies when you're having fun. Listen, I need to just do me one favour, right? If I put this on, can you just mention the fact I've got a threat? I can't do it. I'm a bit dippy. But one of my friends set me up with one of them YouTube channel things called the Bowler Hat Farmer.
Bowler Hat Farmer.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So you go on YouTube, and of course, if the klaxons have gone off and you don't see me next week,
you'll know why.
You know why.
You'll
So actually, you might see me on the Bowler Hat Farmer. You never know if I'll be back.
Come on there, we'll do you an interview.
Yeah. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? And
yeah, we'll be all right.
So it'd be the Bowler Hat Farmer. You've also on Facebook, aren't you?
I am on Facebook. That's under the ARC project, because I've got the CIC side on there, which we're building a community of people who want to produce food together.
Excellent. And I think, to take a leaf out of Richard Bowles' book, he said we should go back about 100 years.
I agree.
Would go out when I first moved here. And you could go up there and you go there and you buy your vegetables here and it's all very, very fresh. Everything's local.
People need to get back to growing local growing or buying local produce in season.
Correct.
And without all this chemical nonsense, what is being forced upon us left, right, and centre. You know, and people say, oh, well, you know, I can't afford it. You can't afford not to. The Correct. Other crap's going to kill you. Stop buying it.
and also, you eat less of it. Because
Absolutely.
You're not hungry all the time.
Yeah. 100%.
Now, do you have a shop that people can go to? Do I want to visit your shop?
I haven't got one now. Do you know why? We'll cover this another day. But unfortunately, the planning department pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed until they closed me down.
Oh, you said the magic words, planning department. You know, do you remember that bloke that used to grow into a monster? When you went to those magic words, you know, I've always wanted to do a Clint Eastwood with the planning department. You know, go ahead, punk, make my day. Oh, planners. Oh, yes. Right, we've got 3 hours to spare.
That's a whole new show.
Those bastards have got their ears burning already. Right. Well, unfortunately, we've come up to our time now. Thank you very much, Mark, for coming on. The bowler hatchet farmer.
It's been a pleasure, sir.
It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for everybody in chat. And remember to subscribe and put your old thumbs up. And you know that I'm being shadow banned by YouTube because my viewing figures are going up and down like a tart straws. I mean, seriously. But I'm supposed to have a throughput of about 3,000 people. When you look at it, it's about, was it 300, then it goes down to 200, then it was 20, and it goes up again. But anyway, thank you very much. And as I'm talking, I'm trying to find the end screen, which I can't bleed and find. Oh, where is it? It's here somewhere. Oh, here it is. So whatever happens.
Thank you for everyone who took the time to view. Thank you for coming. And I hope that I gave you some form of knowledge into what us poor bastard farmers have to go through.
Spot on, mate. And remember, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh.
Absolutely.
See you this time, same time, same place next week, if the bastards at YouTube haven't closed me down. And good night.